Let's kick it.
A Swift Kick in the Ass, episode 86.
All big changes start with a swift kick in the ass. Join the journey of lifelong friends, John Curren and Tom Stewart, as they make conventional thought bend over and take a boot to the keister. Warning, listeners may notice a force equal to or greater than needed to get your ass moving. A swift kick in the ass, living life on your terms.
Well, welcome. It's Tom Stewart, and I'm joined with my lifelong childhood friend, John Curren. In today's episode, the secret to getting more action.
Yeah, this is all about getting action, man. Because that's what we all need, right? We need more action in our lives. But we're probably not talking about the action that Tommy's thinking of.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is about getting things done.
It is about getting things done. No,
but the thing is, John, is if you get things done, you get more action. Because you're seen as a confident individual.
That is
word for the wise.
Yeah, that is very true. You know, I remember back when I met my wife, before we got married, one of the first times I met her, when we first started dating. And one of the big differences that I discovered is that I wasn't talking about Amanda with my friends. I didn't really care what they had to say about her. Some of my other girlfriends, I would always ask my friends what they thought of the girl. And with Amanda, there was a big difference. I was not talking about it. I was, I knew in my mind that she was the right one for me. And I think this applies to creating positive change in your life, because I can think of other examples in my life to whereas I wasn't talking about it, I was doing it. And, you could probably think about times in your life to where you could talk, you can talk the talk, but are you walking the walk? And what I find is that when you're walking the walk, you really don't have time to talk the talk, or you don't care about talking because it's kind of pointless, and in some ways I think it defeats you when you say, I will do this, I'm going to do this, but I haven't done it yet, but I will, believe me, I will do this. And, I think more times often than not, something happens to where you're kind of checking off that box in your mind that you're telling yourself that you've done it when you haven't done squat. It's just a thought. So I find that instead of talking about things, it's better just to not talk about them and put that energy into actually doing something.
John, it's funny when you brought this up. I had just remember reading an article here recently about this. And if you want to search this, look up Psychology Today, and they've done studies on this and found that the more you talk about your goals and the more you tell people, that the more likely you won't get it accomplished. You're exactly right. So it's backed up with scientific studies. They've done this several times, and they've found, just like you said, that when you talk about it and verbalize it, what happens is that you're putting it out of there and it's getting out of your mind, and you've already start to identify with it. So they was talking about there's certain goals, I think they call them identity goals. And what happens is, like your career, you kind of identify with something. So if you're trying to become the best, shrimp boat captain, I was listening to Savannah not long ago, so I was thinking Forrest Gump. But you identify with becoming a shrimp boat captain. But if you tell people that you're going to be a shrimp boat captain, they already kind of start seeing you as, oh yeah, that's the guy that wants to be a shrimp boat captain. And you start to not pursue it or study as hard for it. And that's a proven fact. So they say it's still important because we talk about accountability. And in order to be held accountable, people have to know your goals. So you have to be careful. You have to maybe say, I'm interested in running a marathon. But I don't want to say, I'm going to be a marathon runner. You're going to say, hold me accountable to make sure I train 5 days a week because there's an upcoming marathon that I'm thinking about entering. So to show the intention, I think, is okay according to this study. But to talk about it and say, I'm going to be a marathon runner, I'm going to, do this thing.
I'm going to do this and do
right,
that. Yeah.
Finds out more likely than not, you will not accomplish your goal.
Yeah. I'm glad to see that the study agrees with me. That's kind of a nice thing. But, I think about just my own life and how it applies and how it's worked out for me. And I find that, if you're talking about something, if you're talking about something that's very near and dear to your heart, even with your friends or, loved ones or people who are close to you, they might try to talk you out of it. They might do that.
They often will. They often will.
Yeah, and they might also raise questions that you haven't thought of, and in some cases that can be good. But I think the point that I'm trying to make is that when you talk to people and you create that conversation and that dialogue with them, you're opening yourself up to a lot of risk, and risk of failure. That is because they might talk you out of it. They might bring up something, and it could be a very valid point to say, you shouldn't do this because of this. They might have some very valid concerns or valid reasons or valid points that they mention. But in the end, you're not doing what you said you wanted to do. And I think instead of talking to people and saying, I will do this, I will be training, I'm going to start training, I think it's better to start training. Don't tell anyone that you're doing it. Just like, when I knew I needed to get back into my exercise routine after my hand surgery, I kept on telling myself and telling others, oh, I will get back into exercise. I will start doing my push-ups again. And I firmly believe that it took me longer to get back into it because I was talking about it. I do them every day now. I do my push-ups every day. And in fact, I tell myself, don't tell yourself, I will do this. Just do it. Don't talk about it. Don't waste another thought. Take that opportunity as a flag to say, hey, it's on your mind. That you need to do something. Do it right then and there. Don't question it. Just do it. Even if you spend 30 seconds doing that, it's much better than 30 seconds of just talking about it.
Well, John, another technique that you can use, and I use this myself when I've been for the past 6 months running 20 flights of stairs every day. And what I do is every day, and you've seen this because you're a Facebook friend, but I post a picture of the sunset, which is usually around the time I'm doing it. Sometimes it's the sky, it depends. But I always go to the top of the tower that I run on, and I take a picture, and I post that. I don't say that I'm running. I don't say I'm doing anything other than it holds myself accountable. Hello? Yeah, hey.
Bob's Meat Market.
John left his fax machine on. But yeah, so for me, that by taking that picture every day and posting it on Facebook, it's a great way for me to hold myself accountable. And there's a few people like you that know what's going on, and my wife. But if that picture is not there, it tells me something with myself, that I need to step it up. And it's the same thing. Some people have the technique of marking an X on a calendar for today. Maybe they're trying to refrain from doing something. So they put a little check and say, okay, it's been, 5 days since I've had a piece of chocolate cake, which I'm, passionately in love with, whatever it might be. And then they don't want to break that chain. They don't want to see that gap in their row of X's, you know. So it's just something you can do for yourself without having to tell anyone.
Yeah, it. I think about habits a lot, and habits basically are just things that we do that we don't think about doing. We just do them. And isn't that really what we're trying to do when we're trying to create positive change? We're trying to create positive, healthy habits. We're trying to get ourselves to a place to where we don't have to think about it anymore. Granted, there are a lot of things to think about, and we can't think about everything. But something that's been on my mind lately is how so many of us are on autopilot. We just live our lives not thinking about our life, not thinking about the things that we do, not thinking about the other options that are available to us. We close ourselves off to those options by not thinking about our actions.
Yeah, but John, the great thing about having goals that you try to turn into habits, or is you can implement them so they become like on autopilot, so you
Right.
don't think about it.
Right,
Every day
exactly.
after work, I automatically drive to the stairs without thinking about it. I just go.
Yeah, and that's actually the point I was getting to in a very long-winded way, is that the creation of a habit is actually very, very simple. First, you need some type of indicator. You need a flag, a reminder to tell you to do something. So for Tom, it's getting in the car. It sounds like most likely after you get done with work, you're hopping in the car. That's the trigger that says, okay, it's time to head to the stairs.
Well, the first thing I do is after I get in the car is I have Waze, that app that tells you about the traffic, and I put in the destination for the park that I'm going to, so I know how long it's going to take me to get there. So that right there has already put me on a path to where I'm
Right.
going, and it will tell me, if I veer off course, boop, boop, turn right here, and be careful. There's a car on the side, shoulder ahead, whatever it may be.
Police.
But no, it will red light camera ahead. But it will always keep me on track. So that right there is another just thing that's reinforcing me that I'm just
Right.
following along. I'm chugging along on a train. I get there and I do my thing and I'm done.
Yeah, and then you go and you do it, and you get your action. You take your action, and then the photograph at the end.
Yep.
That's the photo finish. That's the reward that you're getting. And it could be as something as simple as taking a picture of where you're at. Tom's already said how, when he doesn't see that, when he doesn't take that picture, he misses it.
I'm
It's a
feeling really
reward.
guilty right now because I've been sick the last couple of days, so I haven't gone. I actually went yesterday and just kind of walked them for a little bit, just to get my blood going. But I don't want to run myself into the ground where I'm going to continue to get worse and then can't train at all. But the day I didn't go at all, and I actually feel bad about it.
Especially because your wife was taking pictures because you got her doing it. She was taking pictures and
She was like,
probably rubbing it in that you can't
and
take
then my
pictures.
nephews and nieces were there the other day, and they were like, "Hey, where's Uncle Tom?" It's like everyone's going to the park when I'm not there. I'm glad I've inspired people, but don't
Yeah,
rub it in when I'm not there.
Love hurts, right?
Yes.
It's as simple as taking a little picture. It's as simple as telling yourself good job when you take an action. That's sometimes the hard part, is taking that action. But it's such a simple thing to do in theory, but in practice, it's much more difficult. They say that when you're trying to create habits, it's easiest to we actually don't unlearn things. Once we learn something and pick up a bad habit, any type of habit, good or bad, we don't unlearn it, but we can replace it. So when you're trying to create new habits, what you can do is you can make a list of all the things that you do each and every day, and think about think about those things that you do. And it could be as simple as, well, every day on my way to work, I hit a red light, or when I brush my teeth, I always, I always fill up my cup with water and use it to rinse my mouth out after I brush my teeth. Those are habits. I was talking to my 11-year-old daughter tonight and talking about habits and explaining that, not to get gross, but when we pooping is a habit. It's a learned behavior. We didn't come out of the womb knowing how to sit on a toilet and poop. We pooped anywhere we wanted when we were little. It didn't matter if there was a diaper on or not. If we had to go, we just went.
That was my first experience with my daughter Logan when she came out and she was a baby, and all of a sudden she didn't have no diaper on. She started puking and pooping at the same time, and I had no idea what to do. I was just holding her up. I was like, ah!
Man, I remember when my oldest, she'd kill me if she heard this, but what's so funny is she went through this phase when she was little where she could reach into her diaper and pull the poop out and throw it. Poop flung dung is you come in and that is just so bleeping nasty, man.
Who flung poo?
Who flung poo? But it's easy when you if you have we all have things that we do without thinking. We all have habits, good or bad, doesn't matter. What matters is that they're actions that you're not thinking about. We all have them in our life. You can leverage that and use that to your advantage if you want to create new habits by piggybacking on an existing habit. When I first started getting into doing my push-ups every day, I did it right after I brushed my teeth in the morning. Like that was the trigger for me. The trigger was brush my teeth, then, rinse out my mouth and then hit the floor, do a set of push-ups. And that started out my day. And the reward for me was just a simple, good job. You did it. And I did that for over a year before I slipped my disc, slipped discs in my back, 3 discs. And then on top of that, I had hand surgery after that. But it was so strong because I did that for over a year that I'm back in that habit once again.
John, we talk about, if you fall down, you get back up. Right. And that can happen when a habit, like one of my goals in 3 days from now, I turn 50 years old. That will be my birthday's coming up. And one of my things in my mind that made me start doing the stairs was I wanted to be in the best shape of my life at 50. Yeah. And I knew I'm going camping this weekend. I envisioned standing in front of the campfire, lifting up my shirt and having shredded abs and being like, yeah, well, if I stand in front of the campfire and lift up my shirt, everyone's just going to be like, the hell's Tom doing? Because I don't have shredded abs yet. I put in the work, but I didn't, it also gave me license to think that I could eat, more dangerously than I normally do. And I've just been, I'm traveling. I just came back from vacation, seeing you and eating everything, all these great places had to offer. Because, you want to enjoy life. So I've not reached that goal. I'm not shredded. I actually started gaining weight even though I was training my ass off because it's a combination of diet and exercise that would get me in that situation. And for a while I was sticking to the diet, but it's okay. If you fall off, you just keep on going and you keep on pursuing and you tweak it and you do what you have to do. You pivot, whatever it might be. In your case, you were injured, so you have to work around it. I've been sick last couple of days. So, I know it's good for my body. I have to rest. But tomorrow I'm going to be out there climbing the stairs again. And you just keep on churning and you keep on pivoting and you keep on adjusting and making those adjustments. And finally, you will get there. And finally, one day I'll have my shredded abs, hopefully. But, in the meantime, I can't beat myself up over it because I've missed my mark.
Yeah, it's very important that you talk, that you recognize how you're talking to yourself. We can talk ourselves out of action just as easily as we can talk ourselves into action. You could tell yourself that you can't do it. this is a great example. I was visiting a good friend of mine up in Baltimore who was just turning 50, and one of his good friends um, is a hand surgeon. And in fact, he's one of the best in the country. So I thought, hey, this is my opportunity to get a second opinion on my hands. Now, I'm doing push-ups, but I'm doing them kind of flat-handed, and it helps keep my hands flat because I have a genetic condition that starts curling my fingers, and I've had several surgeries now to keep my hands straight.
Should just become a rock climber. That way you wouldn't have to, you just hook them in like hooks and like grappling hooks.
That sounds great, and maybe that will work, but really messes with my grip. And I have a tower of power in my garage that I took some pool noodles.
You might explain what that is.
Well, a tower of power is basically a stand that you can do pull-ups with, and you can do dips and crunches, and it's this piece of exercise equipment I have in my garage, and I adapted it. I cut out some pool noodles to just a couple inches wide, and I put them on the grip so that way I don't have to grip this small bar. My hands don't have to contract as far, but that's really hard to grip something that's large. So I was talking to him, and I told him I'd really love to do American Ninja Warrior. And here I am saying, I'm not saying I will do that. I'm saying I'd like to do that. And he looked at me, he says, don't give up on that dream. He says, just do it. He goes, start training for it. Don't use your hands as an excuse because you have a genetic condition. It doesn't matter what you eat. It doesn't matter what you do. You still have the condition. He says, get buddy with your hand surgeon and have them help you, keeping your hands straight. There's things you can do, with some help. So, that kind of prompted me into action. So I've ordered my workout gloves. He said, make sure you protect your hands. Don't do anything like with jackhammers or anything that's going to cause trauma to your hand. And he says, pull-ups aren't going to do trauma to your hand, but protect the skin, protect the the pads on your hands. And so I ordered a good set of gloves, and it's for CrossFit. So I know that they're built tough, and I'm going to start. I'm going to start doing that.
You can, and I know this is not a workout show, but you can get deadlifting straps too, which are, go wrap around your wrist and you just wrap them around your hands.
That takes the pressure off of the wrist, and I want to improve my grip.
Gotcha.
I need to strengthen my grip, and I need to do exercises to do that. And as you said, this is not an exercise show, even though we use it as an example, because this is our life, and here we are telling people not to talk about things, just do them. But for purposes of the show, we want to share our experience. So, anything that we say we're doing, we're going to be doing. We're not saying we will do it. We're actually doing it. And we want you to go out there and do it too.
If you listen to the show, you know that one of my dreams is to get an RV and travel around and be location independent. But this weekend when I'm going camping, this is my first time I've actually rented an RV or a trailer per se. And they bring it to my site and set it up so I don't have to tow it there and so forth. But I'm going to get a little bit of taste of it. Something I haven't had since I was a kid, experiencing traveling with my parents.
And we all have these great dreams. I have not met a person that doesn't have some sort of dream that they hold near and dear to their heart. But it takes time, and it takes effort, and it takes experience to really, drive that home. And you don't just start off buying, like in Tom's case, buying a big RV. You have to get some experience. So and I think that's a great example, Tom, of actually doing something, saying, I want to get an RV. Let's start getting some experience under our belt. That's doing something. Is it the big dream that you have? No, but it brings you that much closer. And just investing even just a minute of your time, 30 seconds, if you wanted to start doing, exercise every day, if you want to start eating right, starting eating right, it's meal by meal. Every meal you have an opportunity to eat something different or change your diet. Every camping trip, you have an opportunity to maybe rent something different or move you closer to whatever you're trying to accomplish. Again, that's
what's
less talking and more doing.
What's cool is a couple of my friends and family have done the same thing. So they were all going to be there. One rented like a little pop-up trailer. Another one rented a fifth wheel, which is a bigger version of a trailer. And I'll be able to go in and experience all of them, see if I like it or not. And the same thing, as you're talking about, John, sometimes it's, I've recently tried my first yoga class for the first time. I've done some yoga stretches and stuff in martial arts, but I've never actually had a yoga class. And it was on the beach. It was a free class done by the YMCA. And it was awesome. I had sand everywhere and I couldn't, do all the poses and, some things I had to alter, because I'm not that flexible. But it was fun. And it was like something that I really enjoyed.
You know what? That's a great point. Oftentimes we hear ourselves telling others or telling ourselves that we can't do something. Like my daughters, in their schoolwork, they're having some difficulty in some of the subjects, say math. And I remember them saying, I can't do this. I can't math. My wife will say that I can't do math. But my daughters, they added on to that sentence, and it really made a huge difference. And all they did was they added yet to the end. So they said, I can't do this type of math yet.
That's great.
Keep trying.
That is a great story.
And same thing for you. You can use it for many different things. I can't buy an RV yet, but I can do this. I can rent something. There's so many different things that we can do. So instead of focusing on the things that you can't do, focus on what you can do. And we can do so many things. And for that, we're going to live a richer, fuller life. And spending it in action, not just in words, and telling others what you can and can't do. I think that's a huge difference. I think there's a huge difference between people who talk about things and people who do things. Another example too is, and I had no intention of ever talking about this. There's a lady on my block who I'm not sure if she had a stroke or heart issues or what her health condition is, but she has a scooter and she doesn't really walk very well, and she's pretty much homebound. Very nice lady. And I was walking the kid. I dropped the kids off at the bus stop, and I like to walk to the bus stop with my kids. And on the way back, she asked me if she said her husband was gone, out of town on business. And I know what you're thinking, Tom. It was nothing about action that way. She needed her toilet plunged.
That's how it always starts,
I don't know this
John.
lady very well, and she's asking me to plunge her toilet. I really didn't want to do it, but you know what? She needed my help, and she didn't have any family around, and I helped her. I plunged the toilet, and honestly, it wasn't a big deal at all. It took me like less than a minute, and I was in and out. I could see the look on your eyes, Tommy. I was talking about a toilet plunger. I'm not trying to play on words or anything like this. So I helped her out. And I just went about my day. If you do a good deed, and you're telling people about that good deed, in my mind, that diminishes the deed. I didn't do it for accolades. I didn't do it for praise. And I did it because she needed some help and there was no one else there to help her. So I didn't tell anybody. Well, come to find out, several months later, my wife tells me that the lady was talking to another neighbor of ours who we're friends with and mentioned how nice it was that I did that. So then my good deed actually came right back to me. And, it diminished the reward that
you got
that
some,
I felt.
you got some,
It was
that,
like
you
a
got,
secret.
you got some that night, didn't you? That's the way that works, So when your wife hears something good about you from someone else, it's like social proof, man. And that's just, that's like love potion number 9.
Well, I'm all about action and not talking about it. So I'm just going to leave it at that. No reason to.
All I have to say is Hunter clogged the toilet a couple months ago, and I fought with it. Finally had to go get some super plunger from my mom's house. Finally got it fixed. I was like, my God, what was in there? Oh, I dropped the whole roll of toilet paper in there. So the entire thing with the roll and stuff, he didn't tell me. I was like, he tried flushing it down. I was like, what the hell? I eventually pushed it through, but it was like, my God. I would have reached in and pulled it out if you would have just told me to begin with to keep me from doing that.
So what you're saying is that your wife was thankful for that?
Hey, I tell you, and I might have told this story here before. When I was 16, I was at my girlfriend's house, and I clogged up her toilet, and there was no plunger. And I did not know what to do. I was so embarrassed. I reached in and just grabbed the toilet paper and pulled it out with my hand and flushed the toilet. Sometimes you just have to suck it up, people.
Remind me never to shake your hand again.
On that note, what else do you have to say about this, John?
Well, again, let's focus more on walking the walk instead of talking the talk, and you're going to get more action that way. And believe me, a half step forward is better than just standing still. If you're standing still, they say you're going backwards.
Got to keep moving.
So just keep moving forward. It doesn't matter how fast you go. It just matters that you go and you keep doing it. Keep living that dream and keep living on your terms.
Like Rocky Balboa, he kept on stepping forward.
Yo, Adrian.
I'm going to end with a quote, John. This is from Andrew Carnegie. And it says, the older I get, the less I listen to what people say, and the more I look at what they do. It's very apropos.
Love it.
All right. Well, make sure you check out swiftkickinatheass.com. There you can sign up for our free membership site, get John's free simple spending tool. And we appreciate you listening to the show, man.
If you've been telling yourself that you will sign up and you haven't done it, I think this is a great exercise to go to swiftkickinatheass.com and sign up.
And if there's something that you'd like to see inside that membership site that you want us to create, tell us, and we'll put it together.
Send us a note about what you want us to talk about and what's important to you.
Yep.
We want to hear from you.
A swiftkickinatheass@gmail.com will get you there, or you can also contact us at our website.
Yep. John at swiftkickinatheass.com or Tom swiftkickinatheass.com.
See ya.
Later.
Peace.
Peace.